The entire global economy is floating on a massive network of ocean routes. But what happens when one of its most important arteries, the Panama Canal, literally starts to run dry? We're about to see how a climate crisis in one tiny country is creating huge shockwaves for, well, all of us.
To really get a sense of the scale here, just think about this. Over 80% of everything, the phone in your hand, the coffee you're drinking, the car you drive, it all probably spends some time on a ship. This massive system is the quiet backbone of our world, a giant conveyor belt that never stops.
But here's the catch. This whole enormous system has a few really weak spots. All that stuff has to squeeze through just a handful of very narrow passages we call choke points. The Panama Canal is one of the big ones. They're basically the shortcuts of the sea, and when one of them gets blocked, the whole system starts to seize up.
Okay, so let's put on our climate scientist hats for a minute and look at what's really going on here. This isn't just a bad drought. No, it's a perfect storm of climate factors that have created a situation that this critical waterway has never seen before.
And this is what it all boils down to. The Panama Canal isn't just a ditch dug from one ocean to another. It uses a series of locks to lift huge ships up and over the country. And those locks are fed by a massive freshwater lake, Gatun Lake. By the start of 2024, that lake's water level had dropped by nearly 6 feet. Now, when a single ship crossing dumps millions of gallons of that water into the ocean, a 6-foot drop is, well, it's a total disaster for business.
So why is this happening now? It's what scientists are calling a double whammy. First, you've got a really strong El Niño event. That's a natural cycle that brings way warmer and drier weather to this part of the world. But then you layer long-term climate change on top of it, which is making these El Niño events more powerful and more common. It's like a normal dry spell getting hit with a massive dose of steroids.
And the result of that? It was record-breaking. October of 2023 was the driest October the region had seen since the 1950s. Rainfall was down more than 40%. The rains that are supposed to fill that lake back up, they just never came.
Okay, so now let's connect the dots. How does a water shortage in Central America turn into a goods shortage for the rest of the world? You're about to see how this local problem creates a global traffic jam with some serious consequences.
It's really simple math. Less water means fewer ships can pass through. The Panama Canal Authority had no choice but to start slashing the number of ships they'd let through each day. They went from a normal capacity of around 38 ships a day all the way down to just 24. That's a huge cut, and it immediately creates this massive bottleneck, with ships waiting for weeks just to get through.
And what's actually on these ships that are stuck waiting? I mean, it's everything. This isn't some abstract economic problem. We're talking about real stuff. Children's toys, life-saving insulin, crucial car parts that can shut down an assembly line, and even components for the solar panels we need. These delays hit everybody, right in their daily lives.
And you gotta understand, this isn't happening in a vacuum. The Panama drought is a big piece of a much larger, frankly, worrying trend. The reliability of global shipping has just plummeted recently. In logistics, predictability is king. And when a major artery like the Panama Canal becomes unreliable, the whole system starts to feel shaky. Now, to really understand what makes this crisis so unique, it actually helps to compare it to that other shipping disaster that was all over the news a couple of years ago, because it really shows a fundamental shift in the kind of risks that we're all facing now. So remember the Suez Canal blockage? That was an accident. A single ship, the Ever Given, got stuck for just 6 days. It was a huge deal, for sure, but then it was over. That's what we call an acute random problem. Now look at Panama. This is completely different. It's a systemic problem driven by climate change. It lasts for months, maybe even years. And the scariest part, it's probably going to happen again. This isn't random. It's a predictable outcome of a warming planet. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. For decades, the whole point of global shipping was just-in-time efficiency. Get things there as fast as possible. But this crisis in Panama shows the massive downside to that thinking. The system is incredibly fast, but man, is it fragile.
So, let's switch gears. Let's put on our strategic analyst hat. Maybe think like someone at NATO for a second. If this is the new normal, how does the world adapt? What are the new strategies, the new routes, and maybe even the new dangers on the horizon?
This right here is the multi-trillion-dollar question. The routes we've relied on for a century are becoming less reliable. So the search for other options isn't just a business decision anymore. It's becoming a huge strategic issue for entire countries.
So, the big push is to shift from efficiency at all costs to resilience, and experts are really focusing on three things. First, diversify routes. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Second, use better technology like AI and forecasting to see these problems coming. And third, more international cooperation, so when a crisis hits, everyone can work together to manage it.
And that brings us to one of the biggest, most mind-bending ironies of our time. The very same global warming that is choking the Panama Canal is also melting the ice in the Arctic, and that's potentially opening up brand new shipping lanes up north, shortcuts that have been frozen for all of human history.
But hold on, this is no easy solution. These Arctic routes are still incredibly dangerous and unpredictable. There are no ports, no rescue teams, none of the infrastructure we take for granted. Plus, sending more ships up there brings a whole new set of environmental risks to a really fragile part of the world.
And so we end right here with this really big question. We've seen that climate change is literally redrawing the map of global trade right before our eyes. Is this new northern frontier going to be a vital new trade route that helps us adapt? Or is it going to become the world's next great geopolitical flashpoint, with countries fighting over control? That right there is the question to watch.